This is Brian, screenfiles.com and review. What I'm looking at today is 2023's Terrifier 2, directed by Damien Leone. And this is a more satisfying, better written movie than the first Terrifier. What makes that an interesting thing is that the first Terrifier, by my reckoning, is a better movie. Though once again, Terrifier 2 is better written and the characters are more engaging. Though, as I'm implying, there were a few problems with Terrifier 2. First off, as I said, it was better written than the first movie. Now, that's not typically what one would call a problem. Though the problem is that since Terrifier 2 is better written than the original movie, the way Leone treats characters unfortunately didn't change. Which is to say, I found myself liking the characters in Terrifier 2 significantly more than in the original Terrifier. Though that wasn't enough to stop them from being killed, oftentimes in particularly brutal manner. It's a very practical movie in terms of its special effects. Very little CGI involved, and that's good. But the issue is that there are no real angel characters in Terrifier, by which I mean characters that you go in watching a movie that you not only root for, but you're relatively confident that they're going to survive. And I say it with caveats in that there's a main character named Sienna, and the movie revolves around her and her family being stalked by Art the Clown. The movie, for a time, goes very much into Nightmare on Elm Street territory, which is to say that Sienna seems to be having dreams about Art the Clown. And the movie establishes that her father also had visions of this character. And he eventually, they say due to a tumor, went a little bit batshit. Sienna's mother, whose name I don't recall off the top of my head, is one of those characters who I would have liked to have seen live, because she's just so well acted, and I kind of liked her as a character. Though, as I said, this movie has no real heroes in it. Two people survive who you would likely expect to survive, but on the whole, the movie just wantonly kills everyone that is not central to its narrative. Another thing is that a lot of the humor is gone. I honestly thought of the first Terrifier as a comedy. I kid you not. I mean, I think it's hilarious. And some of those elements were apparent in Terrifier 2, but minimized. Which is to say, you get the insane physical cruelty of the first movie, but relatively little of the humor. Dark humor, to be sure, but humor nonetheless, of the first movie. And that makes it harder to watch. And the humor of the first movie was welcome because it made the gore more palatable. In Terrifier 2, the gore is equally, if not more so, as brutal as the first movie, but it's harder to watch because it is not funny. Well, most of it isn't funny. There are some instances that are hilarious, but as I said, they're relatively few and far between. Another thing is that Terrifier runs, I want to say 2 hours and 18 minutes, give or take. Way too long. This movie does not need to be 2 hours, if anything. And in fact, having seen it, I would imagine it could be cut to an hour 45, an hour and a half, pretty easily. It's not the type of movie that warrants a 2-hour running time. You have the level of gore, which I already mentioned, and you have the level that it is over 2 hours long. And in fact, I watched this in 2 pieces because it is too long for what it is. And while it may be better written than the first, it's not that well written that it warrants a significantly longer running time, at least by my reckoning. So that's an issue. And why Terrifier 2 is a paradox that I don't often see in movies, which is to say, it is better by many metrics, I think, than the first movie. Yet, oddly enough, it is not nearly as enjoyable as the first movie. I wouldn't call it, despite the levels of violence in it, which, once again, are insane, bonkers, physical stunts, and set pieces. It does not feel mean-spirited, which is really odd, because I've seen movies significantly less violent than Terrifier 2, but significantly more mean-spirited. Terrifier 2 does not feel that way to me. I mean, the level of violence is ghastly, but it doesn't feel as if the filmmaker were someone who hated people in general and enjoyed making instances of killing them. There's no cynicism about it, at least that I can see, which is really odd and interesting at the same time. On the whole, I enjoyed Terrifier 2, though I wish that it had more of the trademark humor that the original had. So what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow.